Foundation believes that legislation to legalize marijuana use and distribution should compensate for, reflect, and/or acknowledge the harm that the prohibition of cannabis has done specifically and especially to the Black community. With the November ballot focusing on legalizing marijuana, Illinois could become the first state on the outskirts of Middle America to establish a fully legal cannabis trade, which one of you would support the following as it relates to the Black community? And there are 5 bullet points. You could just pick one and focus on it. The retroactive sealing of criminal records for nonviolent marijuana offenders. The reduction in any current sentences of marijuana offenders. The establishment of policies that ensure those who were formerly punished for marijuana possession or distribution have the opportunity to legally participate in the industry. Funding for programs in Black communities that encourage agriculture education. And lastly, licensing requirements that encourage more participation from Black entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that was a long one. I didn't get out here by 3 o'clock for
Is that a
that.
good enough last question for you?
Usually you need to take notes, but I took notes on that. Retroactive sealing, reduction in penalties, participation, licensing requirements. Yeah, I would go back if it's now legalized, which I'm in favor of doing, that we legalize it. One, because frankly it's less harmful than alcohol. And frankly, I'm also pragmatic. I did get a degree in economics. We need the revenue in this state to get out of this hole we're in with our pension funds. And so we should legalize it, but we should put those dispensaries and allow those business opportunities to go to disadvantaged communities, particularly the African American community. And given that all my family still lives in Roseland, I'd love to see a dispensary right there on Michigan Avenue and have a big business opportunity that African Americans and others can participate in. They should, if it's then legal. How are you going to have somebody have committed a crime, something that's now legal today? You go back and you exonerate all those folks and you wipe those records clean and you allow them to participate, especially for those low rates. And so I look forward. And then in terms of, I was proud when I was at the State Board of Education that I was honored by the FFA and that we supported a great agricultural high school like Chicago High School for Agricultural Science at 111th and Kedzie, and proud that they're serving number of African American students there and letting them participate in the agricultural industry and in food sciences.
So we know that nationally between 2001 and 2010, 88% of people incarcerated for nonviolent drug offenses had a personal amount on their person. That is an awful lot of people put in jail for a tiny amount of marijuana. So we absolutely need to make that change as soon as it becomes legal and allow people to get their lives back, allow people to get their parents back, allow communities to get their people back, because for far too long, our African American community has been desperately impacted by mass incarceration for these nonviolent drug offenses at a far disproportionate amount compared to the rest of the population. It has to change. This is where it begins. So I would absolutely work to have a program to expunge records, to let people be able to get back to homes, get back to jobs, get back to schools, and take the necessary steps to bring this new economic opportunity to the neighborhoods so people are able to open businesses and move forward.
All 5 of your bullet points, yes, and how you know this is because I've worked on expanding sealing. I passed legislation to expand sealing. I served on the Criminal Justice Reform Commission, which, by the way, came about as a result of a conversation I had with Governor Rauner before he was sworn in. He signed an executive order shortly thereafter, and a broken clock is right at least twice a day, and Governor Rauner, I applauded him for doing that. We actually authored an op-ed together at the beginning of his administration, pledging to work on criminal justice reform. I've hired an ex-offender to run my district office. He has now got another job in the state treasurer's office, so I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And by the way, the guy who runs my district office right now is an alum of Chicago State University. So,
I signed the bill for medical marijuana. 29 states have it. 8 states have recreational marijuana. I hope it's going to pass on the ballot there in November. Related to the specific questions, I did almost 5,000 clemency cases when I was governor. I was able to give pardons and expungements to many, many people who had drug offenses. I think it's very important that we pass a law called reparative justice that automatically expunge the records of people, especially with respect to marijuana. I think it's also important to hire ex-offenders. I started a program called Put Illinois to Work that hired 35,000 people, and many of them were ex-offenders, including folks who had some drug issues in the past. Not a day goes by when somebody doesn't come up to me and thank me for giving them that second chance, that clemency. I think it's very, very important that we understand that this particular area is going to be an industry, should be properly regulated. It should be open to those who have the ability to do it. And I think as Attorney General, there's a strong role for a voice for the people of Illinois who know what everyday people are about.
I'm Renato Mariotti, and regarding the question that was just asked, we should legalize marijuana, but I'll tell you, we shouldn't do it the way that we did with medicinal marijuana, because what we saw there was a lot of questions raised about how those licenses were doled out. There was a lot of people, there's a lot of lawsuits pending now because people feel that if they weren't insiders, if they weren't connected in some way, they didn't get those opportunities. So we have to make sure when we legalize it that we have those licenses available to everybody, not just available to people who have the money and the insider connections. That's wrong. But I will say this about reform and dealing with the epidemic of mass incarceration. It has to go beyond marijuana. It has to go beyond marijuana, and I said so before I was running for this office when I was talking to the United States Senate. We need to have clemency for nonviolent offenses, period. We need to expand, and I've told every gubernatorial candidate on our party the same thing. We have to do it because we have over 130% capacity in our prisons in Illinois, and frankly, it's not doing anyone any good. We have people in there who are breadwinners, who are parents. It's affecting entire communities. So what we have to do is we need governors who have the courage to do that.
Aaron Goldstein, as to your 5 points, I agree wholeheartedly. We need to legalize it. We should have legalized it 50, 60, 70 years ago. We're going to look back today, tomorrow, 50 years from now, and see that this drug war is one of the worst domestic policies we've ever had in the last 50 years. That's the reality. And we also must confront the reality, which is what Richard Nixon talked about. He was taped talking about it. What was the drug war for? He didn't care about people using drugs. He wanted to incarcerate black people. That's documented. So we have to understand what this drug war is. It is a racist attempt to incarcerate black people. That is the reality of it. So if we understand that, I think we can move forward as far as policies, actually stopping this. So 100% legalize, it should have been legalized a long time ago. And I agree with the governor, it should be automatically expunged. Anyone ever do expungements? It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Somehow I'm entitled to an expungement, I gotta go to court, I gotta pay a fee, I gotta pay a lawyer, and then get it expunged when I'm already expungible. It should be expunged automatically.
Thanks. We know that the criminalization of marijuana has had a disproportionate effect on the African American community. I mean, duh. And so now we need to change that. It's time that we get rid of that. And as part of that, I think all 5 of these initiatives should be on the table to look at these things. And in particular, when we talk about making the business opportunity available to the African American community, this is something that I already have experience doing. In the Inspector General's office, I was responsible for enforcing the rules around minority procurement. And so I know how to investigate those kinds of issues and how to enforce those kinds of rules. So this will be something that will be really important to me, and I look forward to working on it with you.
Scott Drury. The only one that I take issue with is the retroactive sealing, because I don't think we should be sealing them. Right? I think they should be expunged. So somebody who has this on the record and we've now said that's not a crime anymore, why should they have to seal it but technically still have a criminal record? We should expunge it so that person can actually fill out an application and say, I'm not a felon. Like that's the direction we need to be moving in. That's the direction I've been working on as a state representative. I just want to close with this. Look, there's a lot of good candidates here. We all say a lot of the same things. And I think that, you know, in going to the polls, you have to look what distinguishes us, like what matters to you and what makes things important. I come at you with a record of results, a proven record, not speeches, not letters, not saying I wish this would pass. I've stood up to the most powerful person in the state of Illinois. I've worked on criminal justice reform. I've prosecuted corrupt police officers. And I did this not knowing that I was going to be running for Attorney General. I did it because it's the right thing to do. I did it when no one was looking. I did it because I want to go to bed at night knowing I did a good thing. I want to kiss my 2 children goodnight knowing that I made the world a better place each day that I'm working. So my name is Scott Drury. I'm running for Attorney General, as I said, not just to earn your votes, but to earn your trust and to make you believe that government can work for you again. Thanks.
Good afternoon. In closing, I'd like to ask you to please hold your applause while I thank a few people who made this possible. Thank you to all the candidates for spending your time and sharing your positions on key issues that impact the CSU community,